So one of the things I try to tell people, one of the most important things we do as a museum is to recognize the heroes of our sport. Tonight we have 2 years of inductees to recognize. We named 6 last year, and I wanted to make sure that they got a proper recognition, so we're going to do all 12 this year from 2 years. So first we're going to start with horses to remember. And our first horse is Little Mary. The celebrated polo pony Little Mary was part of the legendary team of 1909 known as the Big Four. She was the mount of Larry Waterbury, helping the Americans in their first great victory over Great Britain in the international matches now known as the Westchester Cup. Shortly after she was injured and thought to be permanently retired, Little Mary recovered and was once again called upon as part of the American team, helping to win the internationals again in 1911 and 1913. Considered to be among the trinity of the 3 greatest polo ponies of that era, Little Mary is immortalized as part of the famed Hazeltine bronze sculpture, the Big Four, which is the logo of the museum, if you have ever noted. Accepting tonight is Penelope Pulitzer Miller for Little Mary.
And I promise I will be brief. A good polo pony is worth her weight in gold, and that was certainly true for Little Mary, which says a lot considering that there was nothing particularly small about this mare, who stood comfortably over 15 hands high. In his book, Polo in Britain, A History, fellow inductee Horace A. LaFay said Little Mary was, quote, considered to be second only to Cottontail. And indeed, her prowess on the polo field led to her immortalization in Hazeltine's Big Four sculpture commemorating the American victory in the 1909 International Polo Cup between Great Britain and the United States. How fitting, then, that a pony remembered in the bronze that inspired the Museum of Polo and Hall of Fame's logo is, as of 2021, permanently enshrined here alongside the other greats of the sport. On behalf of my family, we thank you for the incredible honor for this unforgettable pony.
In the spirit of moving everyone through, the next horse that we are recognizing is Jacobs. Originally bred in Texas, Jacobs was sold to Harry Payne Whitney, who was carefully scouring the world to assemble one of the finest strings of polo ponies of the early 1900s. Jacobs' career spanned 10 years, playing in all the top tournaments of his era, including the famed international matches of 1913 and 1914. Jacobs is one of the first bigger ponies that defined the approaching modern era of polo. At the unheard-of height of 15.3 hands, the bay gelding smashed the archaic height rule of 14.2. Although big, raw-boned, and rangy, he was incredibly speedy and powerful, and his superior play brought fame and notoriety to the Texas cow pony. Jacobs is the 2022 horse to remember and will be accepted by Maria Flora Miller.
In an era when polo mounts were truly ponies, Jacobs bucked the trend. A giant on the field, Jacobs stood at then an unheard of 15 hands, 3 inches. He began his life with J.C. Jacobs of San Antonio, Texas, and it was purchased by H.P. Whitney. As Harry Payne made a habit of loaning his finest ponies to his best friend, Dev Milburn, to play, Jacobs was soon one of Milburn's greatest ponies and was gifted to him by Harry Payne Whitney as Milburn's wedding present. I am so honored to represent my great-grandfather in accepting the induction of the incredible Jacobs to the Polo Hall of Fame. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. The next horse we are recognizing is Silverado. Born in 1990, The thoroughbred mare Silverado was bred to be a racehorse, but a racing career was not her destiny. She was discovered and purchased by Judith Baker, who started Silverado in Polo. Catching the attention of many well-known trainers and players, she was eventually purchased by Bob Daniels and played to greatness under Daniels' pro, 10-goaler Gonzalo Hagee. In his hands, she earned numerous awards, most notably the best playing pony of the 1994 East Coast Open, followed by a truly triumphant moment in polo history when Silverado was awarded not only the Lady Susan Townley Cup for best playing pony of the 1996 Argentine Open, but also the best mare trophy as part of the best mounted player string in that 1996 series. Congratulations to Silverado. And the award will be accepted tonight by Anya Ekbo.
Ladies and gentlemen, member of the board and committee, thank you for recognizing Silverado. I am Anya Ekbo, and here to receive this award in honor of her owner, Bob Daniels, and my love story and our three sons, Landon, Benjamin, and Justin Daniels, and with Gonzalo Hagee's daughter, Jesusita, also called Tutti. Tonight we celebrate this truly legendary white polo pony, Silverado, you all know, who rose to fame in an exceptionally short period of time. Frederick Roy was very helpful in putting these words together. Silverado was supported by Bob's Pony Express organization. Anyone who feels that they had anything to do with Silverado's success, please take this recognition as something you once were all part of. Whether you were a vet, a groom, a blacksmith, a transporter, piloto, player, chiropractor, the list goes on, and wherever you are today, thank you for supporting Silverado's greatness. She became part of the Pony Express team in 1994 and left for Argentina in 1996. Silverado's rise to fame started with Gonzalo Hagee in the East Coast Open 1994. Myopia Polo awarded her the best playing pony in the 20-goal final. Gonzalo was one of the many 10-goal rated members of the Hagee dynasty, well known also for their breed and horsemanship. He pointed out that Silverado was only 4 years old. Even though she had a great disposition and exceptional abilities, her potential was worth looking after. So great enthusiasm around cultivating Silverado's potential. The next year she would play about 90 games and practices in kids, low and medium goal polo. Gonzalo Hagee would find Silverado in his string again, playing in the 1996 high goal season. Here, Silverado was instrumental in the victory of the 22-goal Sterling Cup at Palm Beach Polo. Silverado was awarded best playing pony, playing her traditional 2 to 3 chukkers a game. At the last asado that season, it was decided that Silverado was going to play the Argentine polo season. Silverado was a mount for the Chapaloofu 1 polo team, who went on to win the Los Indios Tortugas and the Hurlingham Open, and then to the final of the Argentine Open, just shy of the Triple Crown. Silverado received for her efforts the AAP, the Argentine Polo Association Susan Townley Award for Best Playing Pony of the Argentine Open. Also the AACCP, the Argentine Polo Pony Breeder Association, awarded her Best Pony and Type and Attitude of the Open. It was her first 40-goal polo season, and she was 6 years old. That day was an unforgettable and proud day for 10-goal sponsor Bob Daniels. Silverado started in Bob Daniels' string. He kept her out of the rough plays just to receive the passes and carry the ball to goal, something they became very good at. Silverado had a good mouth, her own very efficient ABS braking system, and was comfortable in all her gaits. Best of all, she made her moves ferociously fast, and she was beautiful. So since today, February 18th, would have been Bob's 80th birthday, what better gift than to have Silverado inaugurated into the Polo Museum Hall of Fame. Bob, with his Pony Express organization, sent Silverado with a message to cultivate good rapport between high and low goal players, to inspire relations between American and Argentine polo players and to allow talent to unfold. It can make history. Silverado became a North American polo legend in South America, where Silverado passed after making her second attempt to win the Triple Crown in '97, and now in North America, specifically Florida, where she was born. Silverado, Bob Daniels, Gonzalo Hegyi, and Frederick Roy are probably celebrating this together as we speak. Thank you.
Anya, thank you for that. Okay, the next horse we are recognizing tonight with the Horses to Remember Award is Cynthia Lola. Cynthia Lola is just the kind of polo pony you would expect as an equine member of a legendary polo family. Born in 1960 in Missouri, the Bay Thoroughbred mare was sold as a 5-year-old to Cecil Smith, who was recognized as one of the finest horsemen in the sport of polo. Both Cecil and his son Charles Smith knew Cynthia Lola was destined for an outstanding future. She hit her stride when Charles took the reins, playing with distinction in all the major American tournaments ranging from the 1968 Silver Cup to the 1975 U.S. Open, a year in which she earned Best Playing Pony of the Silver Cup, and she continued to shine over the course of 8 more years of outstanding performance. We recognize tonight Cynthia Lola, the award to be accepted by Charles Smith.
Well, Silverado is kind of a tough act to follow. But, Lola was a really great mare. As I said, Dad bought her as a 5-year-old in the fall. And she was well broke. She'd been ridden on a ranch. And in fact, I played her. She bought her in the fall. I played her in that January in a high goal exhibition game in the Astrodome, which is where the Houston Astro baseball team used to play. So it was a much bigger area than a normal arena, and it got to be quite fast, and she went right to it, no problem. So, as you said, I played her about 12 years, and then I bred her, had 2 foals, one of which I sold to Charlie Armstrong in the Houston sale. And I don't know if Charlie's here, I know Stuart is. And the other one went to Bart Evans, whose stud we bred to. I think that what separated Lola was she was probably the quickest mare that I ever played. And I'll tell one story. I played her in the Gould World Cup in Oak Brook, which was the predecessor to the World Cup here in Florida. And actually, they actually had prize money, which was unheard of in that day. But after the game, several of us were sitting around, and we started talking about. Somebody brought up a play that I made on her where we went to the end line, came back, went through a couple other horses, another horse, and made a goal. And I was sitting, and Tommy Wayman, who I played against, said, "You know, that was a nice goal, but you wouldn't even have tried to make that play on any other horse." And that kind of sums up what makes a special horse. But anyway, thanks to the Hall of Fame Selection Committee and the Hall of Fame for putting it over in the board.
Our first Eigelhart Award tonight is for Bert Beveridge. Starting polo in the late 1930s, Bert Beveridge remained committed for over 30 years to helping to invigorate the sport through the 1950s and 1960s as it struggled to come back after World War II. In those pivotal times, Beveridge was instrumental in rejuvenating San Antonio Polo Club, keeping it alive and thriving, and went on to found, develop, and run Boca Raton Polo Club. He sponsored many teams in the major high and medium goal tournaments around the country, giving several noted players their start in polo. A 3-goal player, he was remembered as a formidable back, notching major American tournament wins of the 20-goal, the Butler Handicap, the 12-goal Inter-Circuit Cup, and was a finalist in the U.S. Open. We recognize for the Eichelhart Award tonight Bert Beveridge, and accepting will be Bert Tito Beveridge.
Okay. My dad wishes he could be here tonight. He's not traveling a whole bunch, but he's wanted to say, Bob Beveridge wanted to say hello to everybody, and he loves all y'all. So anybody that knew my granddad knew that he loved to party. He'd be so happy to be here tonight. I'm named after him. I'm Bert Butler Beveridge II, and so I'm Little Bert, so everybody calls me Bertito or Tito. These are all grandkids of his, so we all came here to honor him. Being named after him, I had a lot of conversations with my granddad, and we all grew up in San Antonio with, the Smiths and Harringtons and Dutch Evernger and the Berries, all of the Berries and stuff, and what a great place to grow up. I talked him into writing a book, and I thought that it'd be appropriate if I just read his words about what he thought about polo. So he said that polo was to become one of the biggest joys of my life. I'm just reading his book. One of the biggest joys of my life, but it didn't start out that way. It cost countless of dollars and took me to places I never dreamed of. And it started so nice and easy, just one little step at a time. So everybody that plays polo knows how it starts, right? You get somebody with a horse, they take a stick and ball in, tell you that you don't need any horses, you can just play mine, and then they got a horse that they'll just sell you real cheap, but they got some tack that you can just borrow, and then somebody's getting out with a bad back, and you can buy his trailer and all his gear, and by the way, they know a good groom, And then eventually they run out of money and they get a bad back again. Anyway, then he goes on to say that polo attracts some of the finest gentlemen I've ever known. It's definitely not a spectator sport. So those in it love the game. Even though the competition is fierce at times, there's an old world chivalry about polo that seems to bring out the finest qualities in people. My granddad was a big social guy. He loved people. I mean, if he was here, he'd go to every table and shake hands with everybody. And he'd be just so proud that there's so many people here tonight that he would know, the parents, the grandparents, the great-grandparents. He grew up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and it was pretty rough back in the early 1900s. And he came down to San Antonio and met all those hill country guys that sold horses to Fort Sam Houston. So in the old days, if you swung a mallet, these guys would hit a rock and then get like a goat out of a cedar tree. And that's how and the army guys that bought the horses, they paid them a little bit more if you could swing a mallet on them. And then that's how a bunch of those old guys started playing polo. They played with those guys in the army. They all, became the great polo families of polo. Anyway, my granddad loves polo. He'd just say thank y'all very much, and God bless polo, and God bless America.
Bert, thank you very, very much. Our next inductee tonight for the 2022 Eichelhart Award is Horace LeFay. Horace left a matchless impression on the sport of polo. He grew up in Argentina playing polo before devoting himself to medicine and becoming a surgeon. A chance encounter while treating a polo injury rekindled his interest in polo, leading him to pick up the mallet once again. He enjoyed playing for 2 more decades in clubs in the northeastern United States. After his playing days, he took his knowledge and passion for the sport and became polo's most preeminent historian. Dedicated and concise, he researched, wrote, and published historical works about polo, including 9 books and innumerable articles in both Spanish and English. To our lasting benefit, Lafay served on the board of directors and the nominating committee for the Museum of Polo, helping it to grow immensely with his guidance. Recognizing Horace for all of his contributions and accepting the Eigelhart Award will be his daughter, Giselle Lafay Pansy.
Technological difficulties. Hold on. On behalf of my father, I'd first like to thank Marty, the board of directors, staff, and nominating committee of the Polo Hall of Fame for this honor. My dad would be so proud. For myself, I'm grateful for the loving support of my husband, Trent, my dad's partner after my mom's passing, Mary, longtime family friend, Peter Karadimas, who are here with me tonight, and my dad's grandchildren, who will be viewing this induction virtually. My dad's journey to this honor began on his beloved Pampas in Argentina, specifically 25 de Mayo, where he practically grew up on a horse, riding the few kilometers to the train station in the dirt when the dirt roads were impassable due to mud. A tutor was brought in from Buenos Aires to school my dad and his sister Marité in the foundations of history, math, the sciences, philosophy. A tutor who tonight would be amazed at how much her young charge made of his life. Polo was and is a way of life there. Not the spectacle of the grand events like the Abierto, where fans cheer for their favorite teams, players, and horses with the same enthusiasm, including the chanting, as they do for their beloved football, soccer teams. It's a way of life that's more akin to rural places, to cattle, estancias, and land and sky that stretches as far as the eye can see. Polo was enmeshed in the collective landscape with asados before and after the matches that brought in players and their families to socialize around an activity that was a lifeblood. Fast forward to his immigration to the United States and life as a surgeon in private practice in Westport, Connecticut, a place as removed from the rural pampas as one could imagine. One evening in the early 1970s, he was recalled to his physician's office to examine a man who'd been injured, perhaps a shoulder or rib injury, none of us can quite recall. When asked how this injury occurred, the patient replied, "I fell off my horse playing polo." What I would have given to be a fly on the wall and witness my dad's reaction to that news. That man was George Haas. The rest is history. Along the way, my dad made innumerable friends in the polo world, ranging from peticeros to billionaires, and he learned something from all of them. But perhaps the man he learned the most from was Tommy Glynn. Storyteller extraordinaire, Tommy would enthrall my dad with his recounting of games and personalities. Aside from George Haas, Tommy was the person who most influenced my dad's induction tonight. And it's worth noting, both of these accomplished men are enshrined in the Hall of Fame, and my dad would be so honored to join them. Cleaning out my dad's house this fall, I came across an edition of Polo magazine with Peter Orthwein on the cover. I emailed it to him and asked rhetorically, what was the special sauce about polo at Fairfield that 3 members are in the Hall of Fame? Was it something about the environment there, the players' love of the game, their willingness to build bridges across cultures and continents as ambassadors of the game? The simplicity of Peter's reply will stay with me always. Your dad was the special sauce. special indeed. My dad loved what he loved fiercely and unabashedly. Surgery, golf, polo, his family, my mom, Mary, and me. Whatever he turned his remarkable gaze to benefited from his undivided attention and remained entrenched in his steel trap mind until Alzheimer's cruelly stole it. But in some ways, my dad outsmarted even the wickedest disease. He wrote down what he knew about polo, and he shared it with the world. And we are all the lucky beneficiaries. Thank you.
How lovely. Thank you, Giselle. Next, a person some of you may know, Paul Welleman is up tonight for the Iglehart Award. During a career that spans 48 years, Paul's expertise as a veterinarian caring for the horses of some of the nation's finest polo teams has been an important factor in helping the sport of polo. Noted for his sound, practical advice as well as ingenious solutions to complicated injuries, he has spent most of his lifetime striving to improve the care and welfare of the horses that make polo possible. He also played polo, reaching a 2-goal handicap. Paul has served the sport by advising the USPA Equine Welfare Committee, mentoring Team USPA participants and the National Youth Tournament Series teams in Wyoming, giving lectures and counseling young members on horse care and veterinary issues. As a personal note, my favorite veterinarian in the world. Tonight we recognize Paul Welleman.
I kind of feel naked up here without a hat on. Well, first of all, I want to thank the nominating committee and the induction committee for this award. I was kind of shocked. I tell everybody they're getting to the W's, so they're getting near the end of the alphabet, and that's how they pick me. But I always, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a veterinarian. I didn't have a plan B. It was just a plan A, and luckily I got into Texas A&M. I did my pre-graduate or pre-vet school work there, and they only had a 2-year requirement. And at that particular time, vet school was only 3 years. And so I started when I actually started, my birthday's in October. I started when I was 16 years old, and I got out of vet school before I was 21, which kind of means that I've been able to do this for 50 years before my body starts breaking down. So I always thought I would end up just in Texas, and I practiced there for a couple years, and I had an opportunity to come to South Florida, and I thought it was going to be temporary. I was in a horse practice, and I was contacted by an outfit called Lion Country Safari that I did work for in Grand Prairie. Part-time, and so they asked me to come down here, and I came to West Palm and looked at the horse situation. And in Palm Beach County, there were only 2 people that did vet work and horses, so I set up a vet practice here. And I didn't know very much about polo when I came here. They just started a polo school and club at Texas A&M. So when I got here, I just started doing local horse work, and I fell in love with the Gulfstream Polo Club. It was just back in the early '70s. It was really the place to be, and I really developed some strong interest in polo ponies, and it just really grew. Back then, it was a pretty tight group at Gulfstream, and a pretty carefree gypsy life, and a lot of fun Friday nights. And I grew up with people. One of my favorite people was Glenn Hart, and of course Ski Johnson, and that outfit over there. Glenn was just a wonderful guy and worth listening to everything he had. And one of my third mentors was Lester Armour, a guy I just truly, truly loved, and a great individual. But I grew up with a bunch of young guys there at Gulfstream, Jay Romp and Big Rube and Willie Gutierrez and all the locals, and we had a great time. And somebody started talking about a fellow from Chicago, Bill Yovasacker, coming to build a polo club in town, and I thought, well, that may happen, may not. And lo and behold, it just grew up around us, and a lot of it, people say, oh, you're a great vet, you came here. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And I mean, if they had emails back then, that would have been my email, rightplaceatrighttime.com. I mean, that would have, but of course, Palm Beach Polo built into a great thing, and then the spinoff of IPC developed. And about 1981, Bill Yovasacker prompted me to build a clinic right next door to Palm Beach Polo, and I did. And I kind of thought it'd start out to be maybe a 3 or 4 person practice, and it has, with a show horse coming in, it has turned out to be a mammoth operation, and I'm proud to work with some of the best veterinarians in the United States. There, I mean, we're really blessed to have them, and I owe a lot of my medicine to the people I work with. Bob Brzee here, my best friend, is one of the best surgeons I know of, and one of the smartest veterinarians I've ever met. I got to meet a lot of great people in polo. What I used to call the Fantastic Four: Red Armour, Tommy Wayman, Bart Evans, and Joe Barry. They were just kind of missed to me, and I got to work with them and got to learn a whole lot about polo and more than just taking care of horses. And also the Grasitas that came along, I learned a lot about just the whole involvement of team coordination and horse preparation from Memo, Carlos, and Ruben. Finally, about 1991, I had an opportunity. Things really slowed down here during the summer, and I had an opportunity. Skeet Johnson had talked about Wyoming, and they had a polo club out there and a ranch, and I had an opportunity to go out there, and my wife and I both played, and we went out to Wyoming and started there. And then again, that another, right place at right time, that has really flourished into 2 big clubs right together, and we go out there and spend the summer, and that's kind of revitalized me after a busy season here to go out there, and we still work on polo ponies, but it's a little different attitude, a lot more green horse oriented, and just a tremendous place to spend the summer. I owe a lot of credit to my wife. I want to. She sacrificed a lot on all the calls and not here, not there, because you're out taking care of horses. And she has raised 2 fantastic boys. One of them here tonight, Colby, is here. I have 2 great sons. Both of them are doctors at Vanderbilt, and so I've really been blessed. I've learned a lot of neat things from polo players, and I'll just pass along some great quotes. Tommy Wayman, when I was out in Wyoming, he's the one that told me one time, if you have livestock, you're going to have dead stock, and that's kind of stuck with me a long time. It's a terrible thing to say, but that's a fact of life, and the lifespan of a horse is about 20 years, and so you're going to go through 3 or 4 generations of a horse, and it's a really heartbreaking and at the same time happy to go through that many cycles of horses in your life because they have such a shorter lifespan. Another thing that I was told one night, I worked on a difficult colic with Joe Barry, and we really battled and turned this horse around in the middle of the night, and I was pretty proud of myself and puffing my chest out, and Joe said, 2 out of every 3 horses that you see are going to get well regardless of what you do. And he said, you make your reputation on that third horse. And he said, and your odds are better than flipping a coin. So it kind of took a lot of the wind out of my sail. But I always remembered that, him telling me that. And I remember Herbie Pennell one time told me, he said, there's an ass for every horse and a horse for every ass. And that stuck with me too as well. So what I'd like to say tonight is that I'm really honored to have this award, and I promised I'd tell. A lot of times your patients make your reputation, and in this case, a patient of mine made my reputation, but it was not such a great reputation. And I'll tell you, this is a Lion Country story, and I know some of the people out here, Tommy Biddle and Hector and some of the other guys have gone out there with me at times working on things, but one time they called me about, this is a monkey story, and they called me, and we have chimpanzees on islands, and they called me and they said, listen, we've got a chimp by the name of Sebastian that's got a big pot belly, and he's real listless, and can you take a look at him? And then so we go out there, and sure enough, he's gigantically pot-bellied, and we dart him, and we bring him to the hospital, and we try to figure out what's going on here, and we tap his belly, and it's urine, and so we try to pass a catheter on him, and the catheter won't go. And I was trying to figure out what to do, and it just happened that evening while we had him in the hospital over at Palm Beach Equine Clinic, a urologist came by, and he was a medical urologist, and I told him the situation. He said, hey, I've got something. I've got a little instrument that you can poke into his belly, and it's like a trocar and with a screw tip, and you can draw his bladder up against his body wall, and he can urinate until you solve the problem. So we did that. And the next day we shipped him off to Shams University up by Gainesville, and they did microsurgery on him. And got him well, and I called him. I said, what was the problem? They said, well, he had urethritis, and he'd taken a pine needle and broke it off in his penis. And so they sent him back well, and so 2 weeks go by, and I call him. I said, what should I do about this? And they said, well, you need to do a contrast study to make sure it doesn't scar down. So we put dye in it, take x-rays, and everything looks pretty good to me, but I'm not really sure on the anatomy, and so I'm going to send the x-rays back up there, and I think about this urologist. And I said, well, I'll call him. And so I gave him a call and said, hey, I'm the guy with the monkey, and he had to, oh, what happened? I told him, and he said, oh, bring your x-rays over, bring them at noon, and I'll look at them. And I said, okay. And so I show up at noon, and he's in Palm Beach, Palms West, and the doctor's office is back in the back. And I go in, and it says, urology, sexual infancy, all these things on his door. And it's right after lunch, and it's real crowded in the lobby, and I've got my baseball cap on and everything else. And so I walk up to the door, and I to the window and tell the receptionist I'm Paul Walleman here, and I've got some x-rays. And he's really a loud man, and I hear him in the back, Walleman, send him in. And I walk in the hallway, and he's got his view box right there by the front desk, and the door shuts, and he goes, I've been thinking about your case all day. And I had a similar thing in a 9-year-old boy, but your penis is much smaller, and it's about 1 inch, and it's got a funny little duck bill to the end of it. Never once. And he goes on and looks and says, yeah, your x-rays look good. You shouldn't have any problem urinating, and you should have a normal sex life. And so now I've got to walk out through the waiting room. And luckily I had a disguise on of a baseball cap and a green shirt. And so I walk through all these people, and I think it's the end of it. Well, for about 2 months after that, every time I was in like Publix or Eckerd's or whatever, getting gas, a couple times at Cobblestone, people would come up and go, I know who you are. So anyway, I just wanted to tell you that story. Again, I want to thank everybody, especially my family.
That wasn't the story I thought I was going to hear somehow. Paul, thank you very, very, very much. Congratulations. Our next inductee for the Eigelhart Award is Danny Shiraga. Danny Shiraga has devoted his career to nurturing polo players and improving the sport. He began playing at Cornell University and was named the head coach in 1975. He built programs for intercollegiate women, taking Cornell to the finals 9 years in a row and winning 3 championships. Working for the USPA, he focused on instructional clinics and interscholastic intercollegiate polo. Danny spent 25 years with the Polo Training Foundation, serving as its first executive director. He developed player and umpire programs and improved polo infrastructure, ran a polo center at Brushy Creek, and pushed for an expanded II tournament to improve opportunities for intercollegiate players. Over his lifetime, Danny has made a significant impact on the sport. We recognize tonight Danny Shiraga.
I want everybody to know I'm really not sore, but I didn't think anybody would recognize me tonight if I didn't come in with crutches or a cast on or something. Marty, I need 2 extra minutes before you start the clock on my speech. I want everybody in this room who's ever played in the PTF program, an interscholastic program, been a volunteer to help with those programs, or been a parent. Could you just stand up right now? I'd say that's about half this room. You people are the reason I'm up here tonight, and I really appreciate it. Okay, I want to thank Marty and the museum board, Peter Rizzo and the selection committee, the people who nominated, represented here tonight by my good friend and longtime polo player and a member himself of the American Farriers Hall of Fame, Steve Krause, sitting at my table. And then one more shout out. They already got one shout out, but I'm just amazed at the job Brenda and George putting this event together. I'm here, as I said, because of you all, and I've had so many mentors over 50 years that have helped me in this wonderful sport. I hope I've been able to pass some of that knowledge along to future generations. After all, helping young players grow and mature is really what this is all about. I started as a player at Cornell under the legendary Doc Roberts and 2 of his assistants, Dirk Terlouw and Bill Tutton. Dirk taught me that you can get a lot done in life if you don't worry about who gets the credit. I've tried to live my life by that, and hopefully I've been able to, in a small way, inspire and help our youth. Bill Tutton taught me many early horsemanship skills, and I learned a healthy respect for and the importance of the rules. Sitting around at his kitchen table, whenever a question would be debated, he would pull out the blue book and read the rule and then debate it. Of course, as many of you know, that didn't always solve the problem. But it got us talking about the rules in polo, and it really created an understanding for it and gave me a lifelong interest in it. When I was a student at Cornell, Doug Anzac, who's also sitting at my table, was an alumni of Cornell Polo and Vet School. And I asked him about a summer job, and he spoke to Peter Orthwein, who then got me a job with his father, Dolph. Big D, as we called him, always gave his student workers plenty of checkers, and that experience was invaluable. Stevie was in law school then and already 5 goals. He was an unbelievable help to a budding polo player, and we later went to work together on several projects, including helping to develop the umpire interpretation manual. And I'm forever grateful to the whole Orthwein family. After college, I coached for 10 years, during which time the women's intercollegiate tournament began. We came in 3rd out of 3 teams that first year, after which we got serious about coaching the women. From then on, we were never not in the finals and won 3 championships. Janet Burgess, who would later become my wife, was on the first championship team, and Renee Ravslet, now Woolman, who was just standing up here, and Ann Broder-Branskin were on those second 2 teams, and they went on to win another one after they graduated. Ann had come up through the Orthwein program in St. Louis. Because I was there at the beginning of the women's tournament, it's got a special place in my heart. And I tell everybody my claim to fame in polo is that I've been to every single women's intercollegiate since 1976. We missed a couple of years because of COVID, but they're going to be back again this year. In the early 80s, then interscholastic chairman George Alexander asked if Cornell would host the interscholastic tournament. We agreed to do it, and it was the beginning of a lifelong friendship with George. We played together and worked on countless committees, including II, rules, and strategic planning, and we probably had a few too many drinks together. In 1986, Dan Calhoun became intercollegiate champion, and he convinced the USPA to hire me to run the II program. I was working at Palm Beach Polo for Herbie Pinnell, another great boss at the time, and Ski Johnston was chairman of the USPA, and he and Bill Sinclair came down to Field 10, where I was timing a game at the old Palm Beach Polo, which is now part of Grand Champions, and accepted me for the job. Dan and spent the next 10 years running the intercollegiates and then eventually teaching polo clinics all over the country. Dan would go on to become chairman of the Polo Training Foundation, and Dan saw the PTF had to become active in fundraising for the sport to grow. Working for Dan, I learned never to go into a board committee meeting without having enough votes lined up ahead of time to pass your agenda. He had done his homework, and we took his proposal to the board. The next thing I knew, in 1996, I was the first executive director of the PTF, with my time to be split between training and fundraising. I knew a little bit about training, but I didn't know anything about fundraising. At my first meeting as executive director, I was to introduce a plan to raise money to increase training throughout the country. Fortunately, at that meeting was a new recruit for the board of directors who at the time really didn't know what the PTF was about. That recruit was Carlene Garber, who would go on to lead the PTF through thick and thin. And she's sitting at my table too tonight, by the way. So go say hi to her. She was amazing at solving problems that would arise, and above all, she had experience with fundraising. She would go on to create a phenomenal committee at the El Dorado Polo Club that would help her to lead the way in putting the PTF on the map, as well as sound financial footing. I learned so much from Carlene, and so touched that she flew from California in spite of all the COVID fears to support me tonight. I retired from the PTF last June along with Chairman Dick Riemenschneider, who had agreed to take the chairmanship for 1 year and stayed 7. Dick brought a steady influence to the PTF after we'd had a few rocky years, and I am forever grateful to him for his leadership and his friendship. The PTF has historically had a great board, but I would especially like to thank the executive board that I worked with the past several years for all the support and commitment. Tony Capola, Jill Johnston, Melissa Ganzi, and Joe Kozlik. With this continuing executive committee, the PTF is in great hands going forward. Melissa, as chairman, has always had an interest in youth polo and has had a great influence on the direction of the organization. And I hear a rumor that there might be a PTF graduate team in the Open this year. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, credit Melissa for that. As I said earlier, the PTF has had hundreds, if not thousands, of wonderful volunteers. The PTF has had several great employees who gave their all to the PTF, including Wilbur O'Farrell, Chris Blythe, Sissy Jones, Robin Sanchez, and Steve Lane, and Bob Sturzbecker. You might have noticed I left one name out. I cannot say enough about Jennifer McLeavy, who replaced me as executive director. She's a woman in her 30s with the experience of a 50-year-old. In addition to being a wife and a mother of 2, she is unbelievably well organized and has an uncanny ability to predict problems that may arise and solve them before they happen. Her sense of fairness is greater than anyone I know. She lies awake nights worrying about what teams are going to be balanced like for the junior tournaments. And that's no lie. I really value her opinions, and I know she, along with Melissa and the board, will take the PTF to new heights. Lastly, I would not be here tonight if not for my family, and my son got bumped on a flight and daughter-in-law, and I'm so sorry they haven't made it here. As I'm sure you know, playing polo with your family is one of the greatest thrills the body can have in this sport. I include Caitlin Craig in this group. She spent 10 years, part of which she lived in our house, taking care of our horses and playing with us. Janet and I are so proud of Jeff and his wife, our daughter-in-law Naima, for their accomplishments at the Santa Barbara Polo School as they bring along the next generation of polo players. And Janet has been my rack of support for over 40 years. She's helped with the horses, riding, polo, and she's a pretty good polo photographer too. She has been and hopefully will continue to be the light of my life. I wouldn't be here without these people and many others helping along the way. It's hard to get 50 years into 5 minutes. Most importantly, together we have hopefully helped some young players grow, find their self-confidence, contribute to society, and become some pretty good polo players. Thank you again for this wonderful honor.
Now we go on to our inductees into the Hall of Fame.
Our first inductee to the Hall of Fame is John Jack Ivory. I had the pleasure to watch Jack Ivory play in the later years. He was quite a competitor, and he began his polo career in the Detroit area. As a hard-hitting teenager, he was dubbed the boy wonder of the Midwest polo. And after stopping to serve in World War II, he resumed his polo career and was determined to help to revive the sport in his post-war era. Jack was best known as a fearless, hard-riding captain of the Ivory Rangers. And by 1955, he achieved a 7-goal handicap, an 8-goal indoor rating. Wearing many hats, during his career, Jack was a player, manager in Detroit, Chicago, Aiken, San Antonio, Delray. He was an energetic and innovative promoter. He worked tirelessly to make high-goal polo accessible to wider audiences around the country. Jack retired in the sport in 1993 as the Grand Old Man of Michigan Polo. So we'd like to have his representative come up. And I'm sorry, but it's not listed here who's doing this award on behalf.
Eric, Peter, and I would like to express our gratitude to the nominating committee for tonight's recognition of our father, Jack Ivory. We are honored to represent the Ivory family, including our mother, Irene, and our paternal grandparents, Lois and John F. Ivory Sr. Jack began swinging a polo mallet at age 10. By age 13, he was playing with the big boys at the Detroit Polo Club. Jack's father opened the Ivory Polo Field near Pontiac, Michigan. That same year, teammates Max Stefani, Volney Bailey, and Jack Ivory made their polo debut wearing dark red jerseys with Ivory Rangers in white letters. When Jack was just 14 years old, the newly formed trio won the 1939 Michigan Indoor Polo Championship. As a high school sophomore, Jack stood 5 foot 10 inches tall and weighed 208 pounds. He was the star tackle on the varsity football team at the University of Detroit High School. Jack also became the youngest regular by many years to play in the senior division of the Metropolitan League in Chicago. Reporters in the Windy City dubbed him the baby of big-time polo. One newspaper described the husky teenager as a fearless rider who bumps hard and packs dynamite in his mallet. In 1942, Jack enrolled in Michigan State College and only then enlisted in the Army, serving briefly as a medic for the 86th Black Hawk Division. After receiving an honorable medical discharge, Jack returned to college and met a well-dressed co-ed, Irene Youngquist, who became his sweetheart of Sigma Chi. An all-around athlete, Jack competed in collegiate wrestling and swimming. He also captured the school's light heavyweight boxing crown. After the war, Jack's father opened a 44-acre polo center in Detroit. Over the next decade, the Ivory Polo Club hosted weekly matches in the lighted outdoor arena and Sunday doubleheaders on the grass field. The hometown Rangers became a very popular attraction in the Motor City. In 1949, for example, the Rangers hosted a Wednesday night match under the lights against the famous Gracita brothers from Mexico. That night, the Mexican national champions defeated the Ivory Rangers before a record crowd of 6,500 spectators. As captain of the Ivory Rangers, Jack was capable of lifting his hometown club to upset victories over higher-rated teams. To open the 1956 campaign, Oak Brook came to town with a string of 30 ponies and a 12-goal foursome that featured Cecil Smith, a 10-goaler. On the strength of his stellar defense, Jack lifted his 11-goal team to a stunning 5-3 victory over the powerful Chicagoans. The local newspaper said, quote, "The victory was a personal triumph for Jack Ivory, who earned an edge in scoring an all-around play over Cecil Smith." Ivory knocked in 3 goals, including a terrific blast that traveled 100 yards on the fly. In 1957, Jack stepped away from the national polo scene, but the Ivory Rangers tradition continued on. In the late 60s and early 70s, Jack played polo with his 4 oldest sons, John, Michael, Peter, and Mark. Wearing the customary red and white jerseys, they fielded a 12-goal team and played against the clubs in the Midwest circuit. If our father was here tonight, he would credit much of his success to his polo ponies: Dillinger, Felix, Gray Mare, and Town Talk, just to name a few. For a feature article in the Detroit News, Jack was asked about his greatest day in polo. His answer: the decisive third game in the 1949 National Indoor Polo Championships in Chicago. Here's Jack in his own words. Quote, "The game ended in a 7-7 deadlock and we went into a sudden death playoff. I called Town Talk back. He really won the game. I was able to bring him from a furious gallop to a complete halt and wheel him for a very sharp cut in front of the goal. He made that sharp turn perfectly, and all I had to do was lay the ball into the center of the goal. No horse in our stable could have made that cut. I don't deserve any special credit. I simply had the better pony." Tonight, our family pays tribute to all those who wore the Ivory Rangers jersey, including 9 current Hall of Fame inductees. But for every nationally ranked polist, there was also the local enthusiasts, the Roy Pulvers, the Wendell Smiths, and the Hank Evingers. Tonight, we recognize all those who rode alongside our father, Jack Ivory. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Our next inductee is Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney. And he's a man who lived his life with a fullness that most can only dream of. Cornelius V. Sonny Whitney left a lasting mark in polo. Although immersed in business and philanthropy, he rose to a 6-goal handicap during his playing career that spanned throughout the golden era of polo. Whitney was a formidable factor in all the major tournaments, winning the U.S. Open 3 times, the Monty Waterbury Cup. He carried on the polo legacy of his father, Hall of Famer and member of the famed Big Four, Harry Payne Whitney, who we recognized one of his ponies earlier this evening. After his playing days, Whitney raised outstanding racehorses with 15 that competed in the Kentucky Derby. In 1979, the C.B. Whitney Cup was established in his name and is still played for as part of the first leg of the Gauntlet of Polo, which you'll all get to see a game tomorrow if you're here, and also a double-header, triple-header on Sunday. Accepting this award is his grandniece, Whitney Miller Douglas.
Okay, thanks. Good evening. Okay. Good evening. I'm Cornelius Vanderbilt Whitney's grandniece, and I'm here to read this speech on behalf of his daughter, my cousin, Cornelia Toby, who could not be here tonight. So I'm reading this speech as though I were her. Thank you to the Polo Hall of Fame Board of Directors for nominating my father for this prestigious recognition. My father had many great accomplishments during his life, running businesses, founding Marineland, Florida, producing films, writing, serving in World War I and World War II, breeding racehorses, being an avid outdoorsman, and so much more. Somehow, between all of this, he also played polo. Since I was born much later in his life, his early days were known to me through his storytelling and his writing. I remember old photos of him on his polo ponies, and now and then we heard stories about his polo life. Fondly, he spoke of his great relationships with his polo teammates. He spoke of how they worked together and became even closer through their pursuit to be the best team. Quote, "They had your back. They were like brothers," he would say. With a big smile, he would talk about Turnasol, one of his favorite ponies, and he wrote about riding him in the championship match in his book, High Peaks. From his own words, "I fixed up an old polo field near my Long Island home, hired Ivor Balding, the brother of Gerald Balding, who was on Jock's team, to condition the ponies, and I was out practicing every evening after work. Then I went to the Adirondacks, where every day I went a full 6 rounds with Charlie Jones, skipped rope for 1 hour and a half, and rode a guide boat at a good clip for 3 to 4 miles. When I finally returned to Long Island to join the pre-tournament games, I was in excellent shape mentally and physically. The final 2 weeks before the Open Championship were spent in practice games. I chose Turnasol, the great Argentine-bred pony, for the first period, as I planned to rough Pete Bostwick from the start. Turnasol had no fear whatsoever. He would charge full speed into anything that you pointed him at. The game seesawed back and forth, and then came the accident. I was leaning far out of my saddle, and the head of Jock's mallet gave me a resounding crack over the right eye. So timeout was called for just 20 minutes, during which time I was rushed to the emergency tent, and then stitches were taken without anesthetic. I was back in the game. At the end of 8 periods, the game was tied. Ivor Balding greeted me. "Are you okay, Sonny?" I nodded. "What do you want to ride this time?" "Turnasol," I replied. But I also realized that I had already ridden Turnasol for 2 hard periods. "Do you think he can do it?" I asked Ivor. "I guarantee he'll be ready," Ivor said. The extra sudden death was a battle. I saw that Hitchcock was going to win. My response was to dig both spurs into Turnasol, and that gallant animal promptly poured it on. I caught Gerald just before he got to the ball, only a few yards from the goalpost, bumped him off of it, and was just able to slice a backhand shot away from the posts. Mike Phipps scored the winning goal, but the real hero in my book was Turnasol. "How did he do it?" I asked Ivor Balding, as soon as I dismounted. Ivor flashed a smile. "I poured a quart of Johnny Walker whiskey down his throat," he said. "Wouldn't that have made you frisky?" I know my dad would be deeply honored to be inducted into the Polo Hall of Fame and recognized for his perseverance in the sport.
and rising to be a successful polo player. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Whitney. Our next inductee, Julio Arellano. When I think back, there was this skinny, lanky kid with a green helmet with a J on the front. And that is Julio. Right? Growing up as a second-generation polo player in Wellington, Florida, Julio Arellano rose to stardom as an outstanding player and horseman, achieving a 9-goal handicap in 2003 and maintaining a 7-9 handicap for many decades. He amassed enviable records that includes 3 U.S. Open titles and the USPA's C.B. Whitney, Gold Cup, Silver, and Monty Waterbury. Also played in the FIP tournaments, Westchester International. I remember we thought in the FIP in 1989, Julio got hurt. And that field, there was a big billboard. And Julio rode out, and we thought that George Haas was going to have to take his place. And we all kind of took a deep breath, and then who came out from the other side of the billboard but Julio in that green helmet came back on the field. Remember that? That's not in the script, so I've got to go back to the script, sorry. Let's see. He became the fourth in arena history in both genders to achieve a 10-goal handicap. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Oh no, it's Tommy Biddle. I skipped the paragraph. Sorry, I got so excited reliving '89 in Berlin, which was quite a thing. Without further ado, here is Julio Arellano, our 2021 Hall of Fame inductee.
Thank you, Tony. Good evening, everybody. First, I'd like to say how honored I am to be recognized by the Hall of Fame here tonight, especially with 2 great guys that are good friends of mine, Tommy Biddle and Paul Wallerman. To say polo has been a big part of my life is a huge understatement. We came here from Nicaragua in 1979, and as Paul said, I was at the right place at the right time. My dad's family all moved to Miami, and he chose Wellington because of the polo. And 1981, I played in the first Avendaño Memorial Tournament. And yes, by the time I was 14, I knew that I wanted to become a professional polo player one day if I could. My life revolved around polo and horses. Still does. There are so many people I would like to thank and I need to thank, but we don't have all night, so.
Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome.
People who gave me lessons, lent me horses, got me my first summer job, got me my first high school job, got me international jobs. I got to play in a lot of places: Brazil, Argentina, Germany, Puerto Rico, Canada, Mexico. But most important, I want to thank God for allowing everything to happen. My parents and siblings, they're all here, who still support and help me today. My parents sacrificed so that I could follow my dream, which only now as a parent do I realize how hard it must have been. So thank you, Maria, Carlucho, Vivi, Marcy, Diego. To my wife, Megan, she's a great, kind woman. Strong and beautiful. She's my inspiration still to this day to be a better man. My kids, Agustin, Lucas, and Hope.
Yeah!
Made me so proud, especially the last couple of years. They put up with my troubles, my schedules, traveling, ups and downs. If it wasn't for their support, I wouldn't be here today. All of these people have made my dreams complete. Thank you. Polo's a wonderful life. The people I've met, the places I've been, I wouldn't change a single thing if I had to do it over again. It's been a great run. God bless everybody. Thank you.
Okay, I promise I will stick to the correct paragraph now. Now I can talk about the 10-goal arena player. Another young man that I've known since he was a young boy. And I'll tell you, he's persevered, and to have a little league dad like his and keep coming forward, he's done a great job. Anyway, born into a Polo family, Tommy Biddle grew up in Aiken, South Carolina. At the age of 12, he played in his first game and turned pro at 18. At 6'3", with a football player's build, his presence on the field looms large, literally and figuratively. Once called the quickest big man to ever play in the sport, Biddle is a rare player who has achieved greatness in both genres of polo, outdoor and arena. He, Tommy, became the fourth in arena history to achieve a 10-goal handicap, while also maintaining an 8-goal outdoor rating. His list of accolades includes the 2002 U.S. Open with Coca-Cola, 4 Monty Waterbury Cups, 4 Townsend Cups, and a U.S. Open Arena Championship. Adding to his accomplishments, Biddle has become a well-respected umpire with USPA Umpires LLC. So, Tommy, where are you? There you are.
I don't know how to follow Julio. First thing I would like to say is thank you so much to the Hall of Fame and the Hall of Fame committee for selecting me for induction. You don't know what a great honor it is for me. Growing up as a kid, reading all my dad's blue books and seeing all the names, the great names in there, and to be a part of that is just absolutely amazing. And on this night, actually with the 2 groups that are going in to be selected with Julio, who and I played a ton together, won a lot of tournaments together with, it makes it even more special for me tonight. I'm not going to sit up here and talk about me and what I did or whatever. I just want to thank a few people, and I know it's been a long night. It's hot in here. But I do want to thank, next thing I want to do is I want to thank my family. I'm really lucky tonight. I got my kids here, Curtis, Bailey. I have Lauren here on my shoulder all the time. Everybody, we all know that polo, as a polo pro, we're like gypsies. We're to the next place, to this place, and there's a lot of times I missed out on dad moments with my family. And my kids always were there to support me, and I'm so thankful they're here and really appreciative of them. Next, I got to thank my wife, Amber. Since she came into my life, she's added years to my polo career. There was times I was ready to toss it away. And she came in here, and she's been through the highs and the lows. And her strength has helped me get through a lot of curveballs in life. and I can't thank her enough. And then I got my brother. We've had our bouts and everything like that, but I'll tell you this, he's my biggest fan. From days when we were playing with Dad, the days that we were doing sets when I was telling him to get his ass in gear and help me out. He's always been there after every game. He calls me, did you win? Did you win? What's happening? What's going on? So, I mean, Bradley, love you. Now we get to my parents. My mom, who deserves the biggest medal in the world having to deal with this family and having to deal. It's been a Polo life. Everybody knows Polo, Polo, Polo. Never had to have a vacation unless it revolved around Polo. Always there for everything, and the best mom in the whole world. I can't thank her enough. She's... And then my dad. He's the best. The best supporter I've ever had. From the first time he stuck me on a horse, I fell off, landed on my head. I was crying, and he goes, you don't cry anymore, get back on that horse, you're not crying again. To all the chances he gave me, all the good horses he gave me to get, I got to 8 goals by the time I was 22. With Senorita and Preacher and all the great horses that we had growing up. And even to this day, 2 years ago, I took a sponsor of mine to Aiken. I got to play with Hope and Lucas Ariano. And I told my sponsor, I said, listen, there's going to be a guy sitting in the middle of the field with his arms crossed in his chair like this, and he's going to be staring. And as soon as the game's over, he's going to be the first person at the tent going, why did you do this? Why did you do that? Why did you do that? He still knows the game. He still knows Polo. He's always been my biggest supporter, and I can't thank Mom and Dad enough. Best. I love you, Dad. Polo is the greatest sport in the world. I played basketball, football when I was a kid. There's nothing like polo. I'm truly blessed. I have so many friends. I'm so thankful for everybody that's here tonight, for all of us, all the inductees. I wish I could thank everybody. Everybody here. I know 95% of you guys here tonight, and you guys are all great friends of mine. Everybody's been super. And I am so thankful and blessed to have everybody in our lives with this. The last thing I want to say, I read a quote today. I'm a big John Wayne fan. And I read a quote that he said, and he goes, I have tried to live my life so that my family would love me and my friends respect me. The others can do whatever the hell they please. That's it. Thank you.
Well, that concludes our induction ceremony. I think you'll have to agree that we gathered a couple of common denominators tonight. The respect of the horses, the way of life, and the polo community, the polo family. We thank all of you for coming out. I made a statement earlier that we want to build this addition to the museum and keep the memory of polo going forever. Our goal is $6 million. We've got the pledge cards on the table. We have raised just over $1 million thus far. We've had some considerable donors tonight. Join in that Polo family. Join in, be a donor if you will. We'd really appreciate it. I'd like to take a moment, I think it was mentioned before, but George and Brenda DuPont do such a job of holding this thing together. This event, as I mentioned earlier, we increased the size of the tent by almost double. We had numerous meetings. Marty Craig was just beside himself for the last 6 months trying to figure out how we're going to combine 2 years into one night. And I think Marty, George, Brenda deserve a big, big round of applause. They did it. We didn't quite do a great job on social distancing, but we did a darn good job. So again, thanks everybody for coming out.